Alright, welcome to another forecasting video. Today we're going to be talking about, a very, interesting sequence of severe weather events. Um, and we have some significant severe risks that have just been placed on the end of the day 4 through 8 outlook period as well. Here is what's going to be happening today. The Weather Prediction Center's website hasn't updated yet because it's not past 12Z. But this is what it's expected to look like at around 7. We're going to have a warm front in Florida, probably some severe weather potential along it. Isolated severe weather, though, nothing significant. Day 3 is going to be interesting. Dual low pressure systems, one with a dry line or trough boundary looking thing. Yeah, trough boundary. That's going to sweep the moisture out. This is going to make the back to winds not happen. There's going to be severe weather potential along both of those. The first one's probably going to be your tornadic producing one. Here is right now. There's a warm front along the Louisiana coast. 18Z, we're expecting it to be kind of very coastal still. There could be an isolated tornado along the warm front, but other than that, your tornado risk today is going to be very limited across the QLCS. And I feel like your tornado risk today is going to be limited probably to areas like this, in my opinion. My general opinion thinks it's going to be limited kind of in here. Very coastal risk today. Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll probably have severe convection ongoing. Here's Thursday. We're expecting severe weather in a few spots. One area in here, one area right here, and I think there's another area somewhere too. Maybe Florida? I'm not exactly sure. Friday, we have a 15% risk for this day, and it's across portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. We'll go into that in a little bit. Saturday, currently no risk, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some severe weather across the eastern seaboard. Sunday, no severe risks at all. And Monday, there is a day 7, 15%. And a pretty big one, too. We'll talk about that in a second here. Here's our outlook overview. We have a day 8 outlook for the first time since 2019. That just shows you how rare it is. We have a day 1 risk of severe weather in portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. We'll go into that in a second. Day 2 across portions of the southeast. Day 3, it's one of those weird days where you have a risk along the Gulf Coast, one in the plains, and another one in the Mid-Atlantic. Day 4, it's along the Gulf Coast and portions of the southeast. Day 7, it's the southern plains, and day 8, it's Dixie Alley. Here's the day 1 outlook with individual hazards, and let's zoom into the southeastern region. We're going to zoom into the southeastern region for this one as well. And that one will just stay right there. We'll very quickly zoom into the southeast region for this one. I probably should have done this earlier, so sorry in advance for dropping the ball. Okay. Day 1, we have a 2% tornado risk and 5% wind risk. It encompasses all the marginal area. And this day did have a day 515, but I didn't understand why. Here's this day. I think this day could get upgraded to a slight risk of severe weather at some point. 2% tornado risk in northern Florida, portions of Georgia, South Carolina, 5 wind and 5 hail everywhere else. Day 3 is a bunch of marginal risks. One that encompasses Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas. Another that encompasses Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. And another that encompasses South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. In day 4, we have a 15% risk that encompasses places like New Orleans, Louisiana, places like Gulfport, Mississippi, Montgomery, Alabama, Columbus, Georgia, and kind of Tallahassee, Florida area. Day 7, we have a severe risk in portions of Del Rio, San Antonio, Houston, all the way up into Shreveport, Dallas, and Texarkana. Um, we could expect all severe hazards to be possible, including tornadoes, as being fairly likely, and that's for both days are expected. Day 8, for eastern Texas, a lot of Louisiana, a lot of southwest Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, western Florida Panhandle. Now let's go into the RAP model here. We're going to go into it for kind of floater 2 here. I'm just going to look at the photograph map. Today looks very unimpressive. Maybe we'll get a severe risk early today. Maybe we can get an isolated tornado with this kind of the risk rate in Alabama. This just looks like a marginal day. Very marginal. Photograph is very small. A lot of deep layers here, though, to produce some sort of wind gust threat. Mainly more of a downburst risk today. Tomorrow, though, looks very interesting, especially as we get toward 15Z. These photographs enlarging across your risk area. And you see here, the profiles are a bit larger photograph-wise, and they're not terrible. This is in Georgia. We can see a severe risk potentially there, mainly hail. Here's another risk there, maybe a brief tornado risk with that one. You can see the photographs get large, and we get a lot of instability throughout the day here. And, I mean, this is not terrible. You can definitely see a slight risk for wind potentially with this day. We'll have to really keep an eye on that. As we get up the coastline, you can see the photographs get more favorable for tornadic activity, mainly kind of in this area, general area in here. Oh yeah. And as we finish out the RAP one, we can see the severe weather potential moves up the coast. Maybe we can have some nice severe potential right here. No. Okay, looking at the NAM. Let's look 500 millibar wise kind of tracker systems. Here's the system that's going to bring the severe weather today and tomorrow. You can see it kind of weakens down a bit. You can see the trough is kind of located here. Kind of turns into more of a cutoff low. We get weak flow to kind of usher across the region. It's enough, though, to bring isolated, potentially scattered severe thunderstorms. We have the coast. Here's the second system you have. This will probably bring a decent severe event into Dixie Alley, too. And that third one really starting to get up right there. Now let's look convection-wise, and we'll look at the winter side. We'll just look at this. So today we're expecting this to organize into more of a deeper low pressure system, and then tomorrow we'll bring an isolated severe risk. Here's this system starting up. Convection start a fire across the low at 3Z. We're expecting that to kind of overspread Dixie Alley, and that's 18Z. Now let's go more in depth with this. We'll go to the floater 2 section here, and we'll look at the photograph map, trying to just to get a general idea of what we're potentially going to be seeing. Okay. So it looks like we're going to have a brief window around 0Z where we might see some isolated severe thunderstorms across this region. Before everything kind of gets all capped out. Let's see. Maybe it is already capped out. Again, you can't roll out an isolated severe thunderstorm, though. Then later at night, we're expecting a severe risk to kind of increase across Louisiana. This might be a more significant risk. We'll have to really watch out. The NAM's being more aggressive with this. SPC already has a marginal. Wouldn't be surprised if they ended up upgrading the slide if the NAM actually ended up happening. I wonder if they mentioned that. Okay, so they're saying most of the surface-based activity should remain offshore, therefore a risk for tornadoes is not warranted, or higher risk is not warranted at this time. These profiles, that's a good profile right there. I think I got that in kind of eastern Louisiana there. So it looks like that's the next day. Let's go into Dixie Alley now, floater 2, and kind of look at this. Looks like the warm sector doesn't really go too far north, but you have a large area of it. With not terrible stuff. I mean, those photographs aren't great at that point. Looks like your better Helicity's kind of in southern Alabama at this point. I think you're going to have a very local area where you might see a stronger tornado if this ended up happening, like the name solution. Like, yeah. You have photographs like that, like, maybe. Now, looking at this GFS-wise, we're going to look at the 500 millibar troughs even more in depth here. So here's the first one. There's the second one. And let's end up stopping and looking at the severe risk on the GFS, kind of. The GFS is a more larger warm sector with severe potential all the way up into the Ohio Valley and then down into Dixie too. I think that if this happens, it's unlikely at this point. Has the more terrible VAR vectors down further south as well. It's more veered down there. Looks like you have an isolated kind of area where it's not so veered. That's not terrible sounding wise. Let's go a little bit further north. Only 59-degree temperatures though there in the wet bulb region. That's not terrible. Looks like the GFS shows more of a wind threat with that. So SPC is thinking tornado risk and some damaging wind risk is definitely possible, and some potential for low top convection and severe potential in the Ohio Valley as well, which I literally just mentioned that. Now let's go look at the 500 bar again. We can see big time trough ejecting into the point, kind of that region right there, and we really start to see this thing go off on Monday here. If we look at the mean layer cape here, we see a lot of it across the plains. And we're expecting a pretty big time plains day. I mean, I shouldn't be looking at soundings this far out, but this is kind of a look if you look at one. But let's go look at this more synoptic wise. We see a lot of 500 millibar wind shear across your region. We can look at the dynamic tropopause, and you can see it's a pretty strong trough. A lot of 850 millibar wind shear. Lots of theta E getting evicted. And then your dew points, a very widespread area. We're probably going to see severe convection all the way into Nebraska with a cold core event, but kind of in here is where your severe convection would probably take place, a large area. And your mixed layer cape there. As we get into the next day, we are probably looking at another significant day. Depends kind of where the area is. Could be a little bit further east, I don't know. 850 millibar winds are pretty strong, probably 40-50 knots. 500 millibar winds are still strong as well, with your 250 millibar winds being strong and your trough still being strong as well. As you go a little bit further out, we might see another day of severe weather stretching all the way into the Midwest there. That is a lot more uncertain though. It's kind of a little bit further out, so we're kind of getting conflicting model guidances with that. And then after this, the pattern quiets down for a bit. Till the end of the run. Now if we briefly look at the Euro here, here's what the Euro has to say with this upcoming trough. It's more weak, I would say. Ends up really dying at 0Z for some reason. I don't know why, but it does. Looking at your surface here, probably going to see some nice storms there. And Theta E at 925. Euro was more of a localized severe weather event and kind of across Texas there. And then once you get into the next day, it's more widespread into Alabama. Places like Alabama, kind of Dixie Alley there. And that's where your 15% is for the next day. Now, GEFS-wise, we're expecting this kind of big time trough to kind of eject in, and this is what it looks like on Monday. And that is a very strong signal. I mean, 70, almost 80 knots of flow at this point. And then your signal for 1,000 plus joules per kilogram of CAPE is nearing 70%, even at 70% in some areas. So that's significant as well. And you can see there's potential for 1,000 joules all the way into Nebraska. Now, here's the main quarter that I think is probably going to see 1,000 joules per kilogram. We'll put it in kind of bluish color here, probably something like that. This is probably your corridor that's going to see 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE, and that's kind of in the SBC's 15% risk. Mean supercell composite is pretty high for being as far out, and it gets higher at 60. And here's 18Z the next day. We have potential for severe weather all the way up into Illinois, Iowa with that low pressure system, dropping all the way into the Mississippi River Valley, not really Dixie. And here's the area that I think is probably going to see 1,000 CAPE with this, probably something like that. Something like that. There's potential for it further north, but I think that's probably how far north it's going to get. Looking at your ensemble members, they all have a lot of instability. I mean, this is just very consistent that every single one has a significant event. Looking at your ensemble wind, some of them are a little bit weaker, but that leads me to believe that the Euro solution is probably wrong because all these GEFS members agree on a pretty significant trough. So, and the ensemble precipitation type, you can see here. Some of the models have it a little bit faster than others. Some of them have a more faster developing system. Some of them have it a little bit more weaker. We'll have to kind of see what happens with that. But that will do it for this one. Thank you all for tuning in. This is your forecast update for March 15th, 2022.